That is disgusting.
Had to open up with something. So the big question is this. How are leaders like you that recognize people and technology are the backbone of the company they're building continue to make progress when they have no clear idea on how to develop individuals and utilize technology in a way that helps them remain profitable? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. This is Tom and Michaela, and welcome to the Heart and Hustle Podcast. I hope that McKenna edits that out. That was actually live.
Yeah, edit that out,
please. Don't put that on there.
I'm not sure why we're doing this.
Well, you wanted to talk about Cheeseballs.
I don't want to talk about Cheeseballs.
You wanted to talk about Cheeseballs.
I don't want to talk about Cheeseballs.
You wanted to talk about cheesy balls.
I don't want to talk about Cheeseballs, cheesy balls, balls of cheese, cheese balls at all.
And what were you relating this bag of cheese balls to, or this bucket of cheese balls to?
The cheese balls we deal with all day long.
Yeah, not our internal cheese balls, just cheese balls in
cheese
general.
Balls.
You know, I really don't have much for this week. I guess for these past couple of weeks, it's just been heads down grinding and.
Then why are we doing this podcast?
We're doing it because I think it's quite fun. It's almost therapy, but like once we get back in the mode and once we're getting back into the gist of it, I think we're good. It's just that when we take this time off and we're like take this like week or 2 weeks or maybe 2.5 week hiatus, it's really hard to get back in the groove.
It's very hard to get back in the groove. Mm-hmm. But right now it's very hard to figure out like what is our focus? Why are we doing this podcast? What are we...
I don't know what we're trying to do here, but I got to take you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
You know what I've been finding funny lately, where this is like old news now, it's 2 weeks old, but of the Twitter fiascos with, Elon buying Twitter and then immediately laying off half the...
Yeah. You hear about Twitter, but how much did you hear about Facebook laying employees off? How much? There's
well, no, it's not so much
dozens of people laying.
And the world's coming back around. I mean,
off.
Everybody was hiring everybody else, so it's like they offer someone an extra $15,000 a year or $20,000 a year, and they jump ship, and then it always happens. Year, 2 years goes down the road, maybe 18 months, and they get let go, they get fired, and they're back to normal. Well, now with Facebook laying off 11,000 people, whatever it was, Twitter's laying off thousands of people. Everybody I know in industries are laying off individuals, and there's a lot of influx of people back into the market again. Mm-hmm. Prices will drive back down, wages will come back down to what I would consider normal. You're not paying elevated rates for substandard service. And
I don't know if that's going anywhere anytime soon.
No, that's going.
There's
everywhere.
An expectation.
There's expectation, but it's just demand and supply. You're going to have a lot of supply now with employees and people that are being laid off from jobs or companies that are downsizing.
But people aren't going to settle for less. So it might flatline for a little bit, but it's not going down.
No,
especially the way groceries and gas and just
employers still have to be able to pay, but I do think that there are employers that are out there and that are paying maybe 30 to 40% higher for people than what they should be paying for, and they definitely know it. There's a lot of entry-level based positions that people are paying an ungodly amount of money for.
There's a lot of people hanging on to bad employees because there hasn't been much else out there, and that's not healthy for the employer, the employee, or the company as a whole.
No, you deal with that with clients on a daily, sometimes weekly basis, and that happens all the time. But is it, really the employee that's unhealthy, or is it really management not understanding the needs, the wants, and the wishes of the employee, and not really, being there for them?
The needs, the wants, and wishes of the employee?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't cater to every employee's wants, wishes, and needs.
No, but
they fluctuate greatly.
Yeah, but you always don't have to be a jerk and just have, like a standard straight lines and this is what we do, this is all that we do, and you move forward, and who's ever on the ship is on the ship. That's what Elon's doing now, and he's gonna run into trouble.
You have to have a standard.
I think you have a standard.
You have to have a standard. You have to have your culture. You have to have your expectations. Yeah. And if you are doing different things for different people or treating different people different ways, then you're going to have the opposite issue where people are going to cry discrimination and other false claims and all sorts of things.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right on that level, but every individual is unique, and every individual is going to need, I think a different set of circumstances when they're managed. I don't think a manager.
I think a different set of circumstances when they're managed, but there is the same expectations. And that's what I'm seeing. A lot of people
Right.
and employees want their needs catered to them individually. Right. And the employers can't meet that.
No, not at that level.
Not at that level.
No. But you do have to recognize, and I know you do, that each person has different goals and for their career and for their path, and it's up to the employer, I believe, to help them get there, to help them understand, and not just say this is your job, go do it. Now, I think there's positions out there where you have, production type assembly workers where you're just screwing the bolt into the fender all day long. That's a whole different subject compared to a professional organization and people that have, each person has growth, because even like inside the technology field, there might be, 15, maybe 10 to 15 different types of career paths that a technologist can go down. And when you bring someone in at, 23, 25 years old, they really don't know what they want. But within a couple of years, they're going to say, hey, I really want to kind of go down the cybersecurity route. I really want to go down to server administration. I really want to go down the customer service route. I really want to get into strategy or documentation. You kind of want to go down those paths. So you kind of have to recognize those traits in those individuals and then kind of help them with that. Now, that they still have their job and their goals, but at the end of the day, it's, you just can't say, dude, you're here to do this job and you're going to be here forever doing this. You got to recognize their strengths and help push that. And if you have an individual that's happy or wanting to get more into the cybersecurity route, that you just really need to encourage them and help them grow in that position. Otherwise, if you say, no, sorry, you're not going to do that, we're going to do server administration forever. That's what we do. You're going to lose that person. You just will. And within some industries and some areas, it's just not worth it. I mean, we have individuals now that came in at one level and they're really starting to kind of gravitate towards something else. And it's like, well, now they don't really fit, not in our case, but now there's a perception that say, hey, do they really fit your culture because you're doing this? Well, maybe the company ought to shift a little bit and maybe you ought to explore different avenues as opposed to saying you're going to be doing this for the rest of your life. So you can't cater to everybody, but
you can't cater to everybody.
But you do have to recognize that within certain areas of certain professions, there's, many different avenues to go down.
You do have to recognize that, and you have to shift and grow your company according to that. And yet at the same time, somebody's goals, dreams, and wishes could be completely opposite from where the company is headed. I mean, we had one employee come to us at some point and said, you know what?
Current play?
No.
Okay.
I just, so and such company has positions where they just sit and think and come up with all the ideas all day long.
And that won't fit. Yeah, no. And because there's no role to be not to be a thinker, but to be a full-time just idea person and sit there and ponder and stare out the window and stare into the sunlight and say, I have an idea. I mean, that stuff happens, but that's kind of pipe dream there. And Google and places like that I think they have positions out there that are very much like that.
And I think there's a lot of employees in positions right now that are, employees are coming to employers and saying, this is what I want. And employers are saying, okay, that's great. Wish you all the best, but we can't really do that.
Right.
But we can't lose you, but we can't really do that. But we can't lose you, but we can't really do that.
They can lose them.
You're in a... Yeah. No, you can't. It goes back to the beginning of the conversation where we talked about employees are hanging on to not so stellar employees because they're afraid, and they're having a hard time hiring otherwise.
Mm-hmm. They are.
And it's not just because they're a shit employer like, every social media platform wants you to believe. It's because there is a shortage of good, committed employees right now. And so employers are holding on to employees that they normally wouldn't hold on to because of performance issues or just massive conflict issues or toxicity, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a lot of the hiring processes too. Like when you interview people, and I know we've changed over the course of our years, and from back 20 years ago when I first started to hire people. But and I always said this, like one of the big indicators is, would you sit down and have a Pepsi with this person or go out to eat with this person? And if you would, then okay, you're hired. And I think
that's a terrible indicator.
I think it's a terrible indicator, but it's also an indicator of whether that they can carry on a conversation and they can talk. And I completely understand that.
I get that part,
but we have changed, and I think a lot of it now is like we just hire towards our core values and what we believe in. And if that person or that individual you can tell that if they're tracking and if they honestly believe in those same core beliefs, then they're going to be a better fit overall. But if you don't discuss those core values, if you don't kind of explain those up front and kind of get their feedback and ask pertinent questions or their ideas around it, then
yeah,
it could be a crapshoot. But then it's
always a crapshoot anyway, because you can talk about exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to talk about your core values all day long, and they're going to tell you what you want to hear, and they're going to you can get a sense ish. But you never really know, and you want to give people the opportunity and the chance, and then you find out A, they're a great fit, or B, nah, not even close. It's really hard to determine in even 2 1-hour interviews, and you drag it out more than that, and people start bitching on LinkedIn and whatever other social platform they want to bitch on about how horrible the hiring process was.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, I think that's part of it too. The ability for people to vent online is just extreme anymore. I think that's part of what's wrong with part of the world, at least. But you're right. On the core value piece of it, one of our core values, legacy over currency. People say, "Oh yeah, I believe in that," and they smile and they walk away. And 6, 9, 10 months later, a year and a half later, after they're hired, they still really do not understand what that means. And I think it really takes and that's probably a bad core value to have if people really don't understand it or really kind of can't conceptualize it. But when they hear legacy over currency, they just, what does this mean? Like, I don't get it.
But once you're in it and and you see how we operate and see how you work, people get it. If they get it. If they don't get it, they're never going to get it. And those are the people who don't fit. But even something as simple as, one of our other core values, which is have each other's back. That's pretty simple to understand, right?
And it's one that I see not every day, but quite often not being in check. Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yep.
So no, those are definitely difficult, and that's why a lot of companies will hire and fire against those core values at all times. But when you're subject to employee quote unquote shortages and lack of applicants and everything else, you start to relax those core values a little bit. You start to kind of hang on to, individuals that probably wouldn't have made it, and you kind of live on. So I think we have a good team now, at least we do. But at the end of the day, I know that you deal with a lot of folks that don't have that. So
yeah, everybody's struggling with it right now.
I think everybody's struggling with it. Everybody's struggling with it. I think employers are, employees are. I think, everybody's struggling.
It's like a ping pong.
It's like a cheese ball.
Table back and forth. It's just like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And I see on social media and online all the time, it's the employers who are terrible, and then the employers say it's the employees who are terrible, and it's just like this battle back and forth between employer and employee, and it's just like there's a little of that in each.
There is, and from an employer perspective, employees will probably never really truly understand the viewpoints, but from the employee perspective, the employer may or may not understand the viewpoint either, because sometimes they can be pretty disconnected. So it's kind of a fine line there, I think, sometimes. Communication, one-on-ones, talking points. I think everything does help. So What else?
Nothing.
What's the biggest hot button in HR lately? Or is there one?
Gosh, it's all over the board, honestly.
It is. I'm trying to figure out, like, even how we do it, like how we redefine what HR is to us. So as we've been on this journey now for 3.5, 4 years, roughly. It was about 2018. Yeah, about 4 years with this HR consulting gig. I think it's been really good for us to experience and see this. But I think the level of, I'm not going to say respect, maybe I can use that word, but the level of respect that HR as a whole gets is, it's in the tanker. So there's so much busy work, I think, inside the HR world, where a lot of paper pushing and checking the checkbox and crossing your T's and dotting your I's. It's 99% of that, and then the 1% of what I consider really core value is really overlooked. But the amount of time it takes to actually do your work with that 99% completely wears a person out.
It's exhausting.
So,
I mean,
it's
you
exhausting.
have so much paperwork and compliance and benefits issues and this. I mean, there is so much busy work, but then you're expected to deal with some heavy company and HR issues. And it's like, how does a person balance that? How does a professional balance that? And
well, it's hard to bill for your time, because if you say, hey, I'm going to bill you for, $170 an hour, whatever a professional's worth these days, it's very difficult, because they're not going to come to you with all the questions. They're not going to come to you with all the problems and the concerns, and thus the company, therefore, will fall further into peril.
You really have to get in and get to know a company before you can give really good, solid advice and just guidance, because on the surface, I mean, A, people are not going to share with you what's really going on.
No.
B, there's so many compliance issues that you have to dig through. It takes a good year to get a really good handle on a company and an organization. And if that's if the leaders are willing to be open and transparent about what's going on in a company.
It'll take a solid year for that.
Yeah.
A solid year.
It takes a long time to gain
a lot of conversations,
that trust.
a lot of, I'm not going to say texting is the right word, but just there's a lot of professional conversations, informal conversations, could be personal conversations, get to know you. There just becomes a lot of trust that has to be built up before you really start talking about it.
You have to deal with a lot of, pardon me, shit before they're like, maybe she does kind of know what she's talking about here. Maybe she does have some good ideas or good advice, but it takes a long time. It's like it is a relationship, and it takes time to build that relationship.
It does.
It's not easy, but what's going on in the IT world?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Right.
Nothing. I just want to, as long as your phone doesn't ring or you get a text at 2:30 in the morning with something offline, I'm doing well.
Okay. How many times did that happen this week?
Monday was a long night. So
Monday was a long night.
Monday night to Tuesday morning, it was a long evening. So
yeah, there's a lot happening in the IT world right now.
Yeah, as the secret of the game is as much as you can be proactive and kind of finding the problems, but before they hit, you're fine. Having good standards of not modifying things during daytime production hours, just simple common sense stuff. It's an easy gig, but the minute you start bending those rules a little bit, you kind of start shooting yourself in the foot, and things start to hurt. Some of the biggest issues we have right now is, there's applications out there that require, rights, I guess, if you would, to run on those PCs or on those Macs or whatever it is, and people have to have elevated rights to the point where it has to be there all the time, not just when they need it. I'll have arguments against that. I get it, but the reality is people do things. They're downloading things. They're installing things, and they shouldn't be doing it. And there's always that handoff. Is the company will call you every 5 seconds of every day with a lot of employees, or you give them enough rights to do what they need to do, but then they shoot themselves in the foot, and that causes more issues 6 months down the line because they did something 6 months ago they probably shouldn't have done by installing something, and now you're there fixing it. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, beyond that, you know, and a lot of these end users, younger folks are, you know, they're a lot smarter than what some of the other ones were. They're a bit more brazen. They want to listen to their Spotify. They want to download their apps. They want to do their stuff. So, and you can put all the restrictions you want in the world, but the employers may say, yeah, let's allow it. Let's have Sonos running on, you know, 18 computers so everybody can change the music when they want. So, I don't know. Mm-hmm. That's very trivial stuff compared to what we're dealing with, but it's just the life of the day in and the day out. So when you want to do focus on the companies to kind of help their businesses, you know, you're kind of still stuck in the weeds with some emergency. So
fighting fires.
Yeah. Yeah. What really sucks is when you hang on to these customers for so long, you know how they work more than how much more that they work compared to what they even know now. And now you become the old grandpa in the room where stuff was configured now 6-7 years ago, and not quite that long, maybe 5 years ago. And you get a phone call in the afternoon on a Wednesday because something's broke. And you're like, yeah, I remember that. But the entire team that you're working with is all new. Not internal team, but their team. So with the vendors' teams and the vendors, and now it's just like you
have to play grandpa.
You have to play grandpa, bring things back from the dead, and everybody thinks
a long time ago.
This one time in band camp. That's what it's like. So yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. So all I know, 32 degrees in Lincoln, Nebraska right now is too cold.
It's very cold.
Leaving back down for Tampa in 2 weeks.
Yeah, looking forward to at least 65-degree weather.
Yeah, I rented a sports car this time, though.
Hey.
Got to do something, man.
Get it out of your system.
Get it out of my system.
So we don't buy one.
Yeah. Yeah. I probably should just use the company car down there, but who knows? I just don't want to fight that fight, so
yeah,
just leave it be. So I'll make him jealous with the nice black Porsche. So sorry, Ben. So, anyways,
Porsche, Ford Escort, Porsche
Escort.
Focus. Focus. Yeah. Ford Focus.
Yeah, it's a $4,000 Ford Focus.
That's stuck in my head because my first car was this POS orangish reddish.
Cheeseballs
like you
orange?
couldn't even. No, it wasn't even that orange. It was like you couldn't tell if it was orange or red.
Yeah, poppy red.
Ford Focus. Yeah, it was terrible.
Escort.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
So anyways, you know, I think this is good for the night, kind of getting back in our groove a little bit. We probably need to do another one to kind of keep this thing moving.
I don't know if anybody's going to be able to follow that podcast. We were all over the place.
Tonight?
All over the place.
No, the concept was about cheeseballs. Cheeseballs.
Okay. I don't think anybody will be able to follow, but that's okay.
McKenna, please edit out that stuff in the beginning. It just wasn't good. Yeah, and I hope you didn't catch her rooting and tooting over here. That was pretty bad too. I hope you didn't, but if you did, put that in there. All right.
Bye.
See ya.